You see Barbie and you see perfection. I see Barbie and I see all the wrong messages that society has taught us about ourselves and this toxic perfectionistic mindset that we carry since our childhood. Hi, I'm Vassia. I'm a psychologist, and you know I love movies and I love talking about movies and seeing them from this psychological perspective. All right, I like to see the next level, the deeper level. And probably you've watched already a video that I made last year about friends and their relationships and their attachment styles. I'm going to put it in the notes here. But this time I wanted to talk about Barbie because when I saw it, it was so overwhelming how many messages on perfectionism this movie carries. What I want to share with you is these 5 messages of perfectionism that I discovered in this movie. First of all, we see Barbie living in a perfect world. But is that perfect? Is this world a perfect world? Is everybody nice to everybody as is showing, at least in the beginning? Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil the movie. I'm not going to share something that I shouldn't. Is everybody nice? Really nice? Because what we discover is that this community Barbie lives in thrives in inequality and exclusivity. And what do you mean with exclusivity, you might ask? Huh? The message that if you're not good enough, you don't belong here. And that's exactly what perfectionism is about. Is not the quest for perfection. Not at all. Perfectionism is a cry for acceptance. We don't feel that we are enough as we are now. We are afraid that we will not belong if we're not good enough and we will be excluded. And that's why we are seeking for perfection. In this movie, what are the victims of this exclusivity? Because there are victims, and we see them already from the beginning of the movie. First of all, Ken, poor Ken. He is rejected from minute one. But the thing is that he doesn't know what he needs to do in order to be included. You see that he's always, knocking on her door and trying to make her like her, but he faces rejection without knowing what he's doing wrong, right? And that's exactly the same thing that we're doing with perfectionism. We don't give feedback. We don't really want to work things out. We don't really want to become better. It's either you're right or you're wrong. This is our standards. When we're working with other people, we are more focused on giving them feedback about what they're doing wrong rather than giving them feedback about what they can do better and they can grow. Perfectionism is about pointing out your weaknesses, your faults, your vulnerabilities. You are wrong, I am right. That's why I call it a toxic mindset. Ken is just lost in there. He doesn't know what to do. He just copies what other people are doing, what other men are doing, the other Kens, because they're all named Kens. And that's another thing. We all want to be perfect based on somebody else's standard of perfection. So if they are doing it like that and they are perfect, then I'm going to do it like that. It's not about our true self. It's about copying what other people are doing. It's not that other people are serving as aspiration and inspiration, but they are serving as source of imitation. This is when we lose our authentic self with perfectionism. So Ken is just lost in there trying to find what he should do, but he has no clue. As I said, victims of this exclusivity are the Kens and Ken included, but also the broken Barbie. You're going to see the movie. If you haven't seen it already, you're going to see there's a broken Barbie. And because she's not beautiful as before, she's not as confident as before, she's not as whatever, you name it as before, then she doesn't belong. And that's exactly the boundaries, that the limitations that perfectionism is setting to us. If you don't follow these rules, if you don't abide by these standards, you're out. I'm sorry. And we're afraid of this exclusion. That's why we're all trying, running on this hamster wheel. But also, another person who is also victim of this perfectionism is Barbie herself. The moment she starts feeling a little bit different than before, that's the moment that her own perfectionism is sabotaging her and she feels ignored by others. She feels exactly the same thing that she was making other people feel. And that leads us to point number two. I told you I have 5 points. In perfectionism, mental health challenges are not allowed. And I don't want to take it that far. Not even uncomfortable feelings are allowed, they are dismissed. So you're not allowed to feel depressed, you're not allowed to feel sad, you're not even allowed to have an existential crisis. No, you need to be perfect. You need to have your life in order. You need to be happy, happy all the time. This is our society. Don't ruin it for us. You're making us feel bad with your bad feelings. That's the message of perfectionism. If you do feel sad or depressed, or you have an existential crisis, or you name it, or you feel any uncomfortable feeling, hopeless, confused, disappointed, whatever, then you face society's pity, contempt, again, the not belonging, isolation, because you disrupted this beautiful world and positive world that we are struggling to build. Plus, we learn how to ignore our comfortable feelings. That's what perfectionism does, and that's what we call emotional perfectionism. You ignore any uncomfortable feeling. But then, surprise, surprise, this doesn't go away. These feelings are just staying inside us. They get stuck up, they multiply, they accumulate, and of course, sooner or later, we're going to face the consequences of this suppression. And don't be surprised that it comes as an explosion one day. Number three, a third message is that there's no space for imperfection. Barbie panics when she has a bad day. Don't we all feel the same thing? That we shouldn't have a bad day? What's wrong with me living a bad day today? Everybody's happy, thriving, being successful today, and everything goes wrong for me today. I'm not in the mood, I don't have energy. We don't like it. We just want to shake it off us. And not only a bad day, but also when we feel rejected, when we face a setback, when we feel that we are left behind, as if this is not part of real life, as if this is not supposed to happen. That's a distorted mindset of perfectionism. We feel that this doesn't belong in real life, while the reality is that this is real life. We're going to be rejected. We're also going to reject. We're going to face setbacks. We're going to change our minds. We are going to be left behind because we're going at a different pace, because we have other priorities, because life. This is part of life. And unfortunately, society hasn't prepared us for that real life. We are prepared for a perfect life, but not for this life. Point number four, perfectionism is about people pleasing. This is when we want to show to people around us that we abide by the norms as set by society or by our environment, by family, you name it. And of course, we use social media in order to testify it. We upload publish pictures to show people that, look, I have friends, look, I have a happy life, look, I make money. So it's all about showing to other people. And sometimes that's not our whole identity. That's only a part of our identity. And even sometimes we are even faking it. We're not even real there in social media. We're not sharing our real struggles or our real self. And that's again about Barbie when she realizes that she is not who she wants to be. All these things that she was doing so far, it was just a fake identity. So she's bringing up the topic of personal identity, of individuality, of feeling that this is who you are, and you like yourself, instead of being in this miserable grind trying to, satisfy everybody. I like that movie because it reminded us of that we may spend decades of our life on an identity that we built and we thought that it was us, our values, but one day we might realize that this was somebody else's lives, this was somebody else's values. But now we need to figure out our own footprint in life. And last but not least, as I said, it's about the image, and it's about trying to convince people who we are. So it's a woman who is showing off in a specific way as she is supposed to be, but nothing on how she gets there. So, for example, she may look like she's 20 years old, but no mention about how she feels inside, or what sacrifices she had to do in order to get there. Or it's about how a man is supposed to be manly enough and behave, but not how much he struggles in suppressing all the other needs and feelings he might have. So we see already the struggle that is happening on an internal level. It's all about what we show off out there, but nothing about what we really want to feel, how much allowed we are in order to be that. It's about the mask we put on. And of course, living on the mask, there's no joy in that. And we really understood that in that movie. I mean, that's one reason also that I also love that movie. So in reality, the movie Barbie is about the quest for the real world, not the perfect world, but the real world, the real self, not the perfect self, but the real self. It was a journey, and maybe it lasted 1.5, or I don't know, I don't remember how many hours. But in real life, that can take, as I said, decades for us. And once we embark on this journey, then there's no way back, actually. We start discovering our real self sooner or later. So, what do you think? Let me know your comments. Of course, no spoiler alerts. If you've seen the movie, let me know your feedback. Let me know your questions. What do you think about these 5 points that I just shared with you? And if you think that you are also struggling with perfectionism anxiety, not feeling good enough, feeling stressed, overwhelmed, feeling that you are always have to work, push harder, never rest, if you're feeling that, maybe what you need is to fill in this quiz that I have on antiloneliness.com, how much of a perfectionist you are. You're going to find it in the description, and that will give you an idea of how much perfectionism has gotten into you and distorted your life values, distorted your life direction. And of course, if you want to work with your perfectionism, you know where to find me. Here I am, and I have a full program on how we can actually find a real self and change this negative, toxic, self sabotaging mindset that gets in the way to our success, our growth, fulfillment, and living a happy life. Don't forget to subscribe. More interesting videos are coming up, and looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, take good care of yourself.